All right, welcome back. This is step four now. For those of you who are following along, Randy and I just recorded step three. Just a reminder that any time that you invest in watching this program, listening to these conversations, interacting with me and Randy outside of these conversations, it's all hours that you can have credited to the Karmic Margin Call Project Time Bank. And we are really just demonstrating what a living library conversation is. A living library conversation is really, two people, exploring and asking questions and sharing, really just sharing life experiences. So thank you for joining us. And Randy, I think we will go on to your version of step four here, and then I'll read the Under Earners Anonymous step four. But why don't you go ahead and take it away, and we'll start this conversation off with your insight.
Yeah. So the way I wrote it is we made a detailed inventory of our strengths, weaknesses, and misconceptions.
Mm,
So we're conducting a thorough self-assessment to identify our attributes,
mhm.
the liabilities and misunderstandings that we have about them. And basically, the result of doing this exercise is an improved self-awareness, targeted growth. You gain a clearer understanding of your personal strengths and your areas for improvement.
Yeah. Yeah, and number four for at the Underearners Anonymous site is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So that can be a daunting proposition for a lot of people. I've been through this process. I've been through that process, many times in my life where I had to get really brutally honest with myself. But let's start with your journey on this, Randy. What has that experience of taking an inventory so your words are strengths, weaknesses, and what was the other one that you had come up with?
Well, and again, in misconceptions.
Misconceptions. Yeah.
So, yeah, so again, this is part of the whole willingness is, are you willing to admit that you might have a misunderstanding on who you are, your identity, your misunderstanding in a relationship, and so on and such, because we humans do strive for certainty.
Hmm. Yeah.
It is how we find it psychologically a safety about things. So if doggone it, this is the way it is, and such. If you're willing to say, well, but maybe I could be wrong. For me, back that was kind of no, not kind of. It was a big deal because there were again in the times that I felt I had been violated. Again, I had been offended greatly, and there was strong emotional content
Hmm.
involved with this. Um, to take three steps back and look at what my part was in the relationship and the situation, um, not a kind of a big deal. It was a big, big deal. And back to again what we were talking about, the miracle is, some people define it, and I think it is probably the best way to define it here, is a change in perception.
Yeah.
So to realize that for myself, to summarize all these relationships that I had challenges with and such, um, yeah, to understand my part into it, um, yeah, I had a huge problem with the shoulds.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. It should have been this way. It shouldn't have been this way. If only those types of things, where this is back to again how I've talked about my rewording of the first step is to understanding we can't control outcomes.
Right.
My father and I should have had a different relationship. And you spoke a little bit about being kinder and more compassionate towards ourselves. When I realized that I had an active part in that relationship, and I had done things that now as a man, as an adult, that I would have not probably tolerated my behavior.
Mhm.
Um, it was to be kinder, not just towards how I saw my father, but kinder towards myself, to understand that we both did the best we could with what we had in our emotional and our mental capabilities. Um, yeah, all in all, that changed the perception of stuff, and a lot of the regrets, a lot of the resentments, anger, um, the need for revenge, retribution in situation, the
Mhm.
importance of that just faded away.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's taking responsibility, it sounds like, is that you had an opportunity to, once you were able to see that clearly, you took responsibility. I think that's what this is really is taking self accountability for that.
Yeah, so this might rub some people the wrong way. Spoiler alert, you may get your hackles up when you hear this, but for myself, as I went through this, I realized that I took a victim stance in
Mhm.
all of these relationships. I was the victim,
Mhm.
okay? And again, why I gave that hitter and stuff, that was not something that I accepted easily. But as I went through the process and I saw it repeatedly in relationship after relationship, um, I was able to now start taking responsibility. We'll get more into this when we do the fifth and sixth steps and such. It's again, this sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, type of stuff. It was a process for me to conclude that no one else is responsible for the quality of my life but Randy,
Right.
which is again for somebody who's always consistently blamed people for their circumstances. It's not my fault. It's Mike's fault that it went this way, kind of stuff. To go from that to somebody going, no, I had a part in all this, and of course, ultimately, I'm not responsible for Mike at all. I
Mhm.
am responsible for Randy. So um, that is again also if it's not not personal. I hope you can get it's more conceptual for the listener right now. I hope you can see how empowering that is to all of a sudden go from the world is against me to not have to necessarily take again revenge because again these people have done me wrong, to accept my part and my responsibility. Um, wow, wow. Um, yeah, there's no other, but wow that is for it. But again, it's something that the individual has to go through
Mhm.
to appreciate. Um, one of my favorite phrases is, "You can't think your way into a new way of living. You must live your way into a new way of thinking." You have to go through this process. Or to quote my dad, if you want to learn how to swim, you're going to have to get wet.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, what's alive for me in response to that too, Randy, as well, is looking at how easily when we play the victim or we take on the victim stance. I mean, I do a lot of work looking at kind of like the bully, the bullied, and the bystander. So the aggressor, the victim, and the an enabler. So it's just how easy it is when you blame others and you go in the victim stance, it turns around very quickly where I notice in myself where I become the aggressor, out of this sense of perceiving myself as the victim, that oftentimes I become the bully, I become the aggressor out of that defensiveness. And we had a speaker a couple weeks ago at Circle of Miracles, kind of looking at the polarity of the empath and the narcissist as well, not putting judgments on that, and even though the title, as a psychological diagnosis of narcissist has been weaponized, I don't want to put a judgment call on that, but it's kind of like that dynamic between looking out for oneself and trying to give to other people all the time. There's a need for balance. There's a need for balance, and I think being able to take responsibility, for your part or for your feelings or for times when you felt disempowered. I think that brings us back into balance where we're balancing out our needs and the needs of another. How this, as I was taking my moral inventory, and I'm I've beaten myself up pretty good, pretty good over the years. But what I'm currently landing on, and I'm experiencing some friction in this within my ministry at the moment. But we're working into it. We're leaning into the discomfort. Is looking at what some has identified as white supremacy culture or white supremacy values, which is really kind of prevalent in institutional thinking, business, and it kind of ties into this under earners conversation as well too. So I don't want to make this a political conversation, about racism or anything else. But when you take a look at these values that have been identified as white supremacist values, there's where a lot of the trauma gets revealed, like this need for one right way of doing things. Ooh, well, I kind of resembled that, at some point in my life. Perfectionism, the worship of the written word, whether it's just a worship of the Bible or the worship of something that somebody wrote just because they wrote it and it got published. These are all things where we start to beat ourselves up over not being perfect, not not doing things the right way, the should ofs. So what I got out of that was taking my own moral inventory, looking at my my worldview based on these white supremacist values. I had to take responsibility for how I was, how I was presenting to the world because I was raised in that culture. So that's where I kind of looked at my own tendency to be a victim and to blame others, and start to take responsibility in that. How do I take responsibility for my own trauma? How do I work into the discomfort of what has been culturally conditioned into me? So yeah, so that's what's come up for me around doing that moral inventory. So I would ask Randy, first of all, let me put it back to you for any reflections or any clarifying questions that you might have in response to me.
Well, when you reference white supremacy, I just heard the Supremacy Act. So again, if somebody, well, again, gets their hackles up and rubbed the wrong way with those two words put together, let's lop off the first one. Just supremacy. For whatever reason, I think I'm better for you. And by the way, anytime you judge another person, you think you know better than them. It's really that simple. Um, so this is we got into earlier talking about vertical and horizontal relationships, judging others and your opinions and stuff, imposing your opinions, again, your misconceptions. Again, it's a limited viewpoint. Again, that's the other thing. No one has an omniscience. Well, maybe there might be a few enlightened people, but very few people out of the 8 billion can see the big picture. And to understand just that, it's like, yeah, no matter how much information I have, I don't know the big picture. I certainly don't know what's been your journey that's brought you to this point. Again, in whatever point where, again, I feel that you're trying to inflict judgment and condemnation or your opinion upon unsolicited advice is an insult. Okay. Um, if it's not emotionally charged, can make it where I can discern the fact is like, well, this person has had a lifetime to come to this conclusion, this opinion, this judgment. For them, there's a valid reason for them to do it. And I may feel attacked, and those feelings are valid. I'm really feeling them. It's not wrong to feel attacked when that's happening. Again, I have my life experiences when this has triggered me. But a friend of mine who's got, I think it's over 40 years now, continuous sobriety. He's done a lot of work on himself and he's worked with a lot of other people. He says triggers are the barometer of his mental health. And This is one of those things. It's like, wait a minute. If, again, and a trigger does not necessarily mean, the offense of somebody in trying to be superior. And stuff. A trigger could be something like smelling apple pie in the oven. It triggers a memory of that is quite pleasant. And it's a trigger as a stimulus. But if we talk about again, um, in the context of mental health, it's just pointing to us to moments where there's something with us, and we all have something with us. Everybody has wounds. That's another thing that's helped me in my relationships. Just because I don't know what yours are, um, again, just taking the stance that I've been hurt, you've been hurt, everyone's been hurt, and there's some type of residual energy with that emotional wounding and stuff. It's been easier for me to take this less personally. And but on the other hand, again, there are certainly times when I react instead of respond. This everything I'm sharing has gone out the window,
Yeah.
and this to reiterate the compassion and the kindness, I've gotten better in catching it sooner than later, nor do I have the need to defend it. It's just what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you went on mute?
Rooster's howling.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's again, as we're getting into this assessment and such, and emotions and memories are
Mhm.
stimulating, intense emotions,
Mhm.
real common here and stuff. To be kind with yourself and to understand there's nothing wrong with this. If you feel like, putting the exercise on pause, that's normal. Um, on the other hand, it is an indicator that this work is going to benefit you in the long run.
Mhm.
Again, it's like I'm triggered right now remembering this situation. Yeah, that sucks. And you probably should put it on pause and such. Something's going on here. Be kind and stuff, just much as is if you were observing someone else do it. But then naturally, the inclination is, well, I don't want to feel crummy again. I don't want to feel this stuff. I don't want to continue with this work. Well, know that this is going to provide an emotional freedom
Yeah.
as you when you come out the other side, when you have the change of perception on this. Now, one of the things that I'm really big on is doing this with a partner. So historically, most people talk about doing this in solitude, this exercise. I really got hung up on this because if you haven't done the exercise, you're going to make a column first of all your resentments,
Mhm.
people,
Mhm.
places, and things that you're carrying resentment. That's all you
Mm.
got to do. And then you work horizontally across them to see how they affect you in different areas of your life.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I hated myself more than anyone else. So I put myself at the top of the list.
Mm.
Well, what's my part in this self-hatred? Again, it was like a dog chasing his tail kind of stuff. Helping, having the help of another individual was, again, having unrealistic expectations on how I should have been behaving
Mhm.
was my part in all this.
Mhm.
And that was huge because, again, just because I was thinking I should do this alone and stuff. I wasn't accomplishing anything. I was just getting more and more frustrated. Again, I was hating myself more. It's like I should be able to do this. People are doing this. Somehow I have. No, I was overthinking it. Again, the intense emotions. So lots and lots of words to say if you're having some challenges. There is nothing wrong with sitting down and doing this exercise at the same time. I frame this up as doing the fourth and the fifth at the same time. So if you're not familiar with this process, you take this personal assessment, this moral inventory,
Mhm.
and then you would share it with another individual. That's the fifth step. The
Mhm.
way I've found has been very, very beneficial for me. The way I was shown, and the way, frankly, I do it 9 out of 10 times
Mhm.
is we sit down and we do this together. So you're accomplishing that sharing with another individual as your is the revealing is happening for you at the same time.
Mhm.
So when these things, like again, this hypothetical, as I mentioned, is all of a sudden I'm reliving something where I'm feeling intense emotions. There may be an inclination to continue. Again, is guys, we hey push through the pain and stuff, make it happen. There's been more than once where I told someone it's like, well, do you think that's the best idea right now? Because again, we want to have less influence of the emotions. We're
Mhm.
looking for this to be objective, not a subjective review.
Right.
Much like a detective or a reporter would come into a situation and I just want the facts, please.
Mhm.
Just the facts here. I know you feel this way and stuff, and I know this is triggering anger.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, the anger isn't going to help you. Just the facts, please, type of thing. So having a sounding board at that same time of just kind of going, you know what? I don't think you're being real objective at this moment. Again, it's legitimate that the anger's there.
Mhm.
I'm not saying calm down. You're out of place for being so angry. That would be me taking the position of knowing better than you and
Mhm.
trying to fix you and all that kind of stuff that I advise not doing.
Right.
Okay. And it's not by virtue, but by circumstance I came to this awareness.
Mhm.
But if you can have someone beside you that just is, lack of a better description, the voice of reason, but no, you know what, Randy, you don't have to do this all today. You are not going to do this all today. Even if you were pushing through this. Now's a good time to just, I don't know, put it on pause, go for a walk, watch TV, whatever it may be that is going to put you in a more centered, grounded position and such. And the answers will come
Mhm.
with you. Um, so again, if you're not aware of what the individual, again, this could be a long discussion of what exactly the mechanics of the program are.
Mhm.
We're getting into more about attitudes and emotions and such
Mhm.
in this discussion.
Yeah, no, that's great, Randy. And in a moment, I might ask you to maybe explain a step-by-step process on listing the resentments and that process that you described. What I would like to what I would like to offer up as well too is that there's exercises that I do with partners as well too, and someone listening here might want to practice that at some point when they feel ready. But what we often do is something called a clearing process, where we identify someone or even some incident where we have a charge. And first we start with the facts. Okay, what is observable data? What actually happened? Okay, let's start from a factual perspective. Then we go into the judgments or even the resentments. And we use languaging around it. Is my judgment about this is I judged that I judged that this person was having a bad day, or the story I'm telling myself is so that's another piece of language we sometimes say as well. As the story I'm telling myself about this. So like the story I'm telling myself is that this was a political issue, or the story I'm telling myself is that we were both triggered. And then the last portion of that is the feeling. What was the feeling that came up? And that's where and that's where the work is. And like you had said, it's not denying the anger or not denying the feeling, but fully being present to it and being able to speak to it. And we usually try to stick with the five core, what we think of as core emotions: mad, sad, glad, fear, or shame. So that's one process that we sometimes do to be able to take that moral inventory of ourselves. And then to take it a step further as well, too, sometimes we go into projections. Like if I'm judging that, oh, well, that person was just being an asshole because they made a passive aggressive comment or something, then it's an invitation to look within. Well, when have I been passive aggressive? When have I possibly been the asshole? so so that's one that might be one avenue for someone listening to maybe explore with us or to explore with a partner that they trust.
Yep. I think that's great. Yeah. So that is, again, that was very, very helpful for me is that looking in the mirror. of, again, because it's we're discovering our part in these relationships. Again, we're establishing responsibility in our relationships. These interpersonal problems, that have affected us repeatedly in life. Um, yeah, it's to understand that there's more to the situation again than what we believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. What's emerging for me as well too, especially when there are such high stakes now. Just some of the political narratives that we're being fed. It's really helpful as far as conflict mediation, and as well to be able to, first of all, to take your own moral inventory to help others do that. I find that that's more effective than trying to come in and fix, or trying to come in and position the self as an expert or as an authority, where if we're taking our own moral inventory, we can hold space for others to do the same. So that being said, Randy, can you walk me through the process? I'm going to take notes here about how to do that, listing the resentments, and what is that process like?
Can you allow me to do a screen share? I think this
Absolutely.
might be better to use I'm going to share some worksheets with you. Um, this is just something I found on the internet. Know that, gosh, I don't know how many different variations I have found on the process.
Mhm.
So know if you have been shown something that's different um, than what I'm going to share with you right now.
Mhm.
Um, that's fine. There's there. So
There
as
we
you can
go.
see on this worksheet here, again, I mentioned earlier, again, you just begin, hey, people, institutions, principles I'm angry with. Okay. As I
Wow.
said, myself. I'm upset at Randy. Why am I angry? Because Randy should have done differently.
Mhm.
You know, and by the way, in the header here, there's an explanation of this in the big book. And again,
Mhm.
if you are in Under Earners Anonymous, AA's big book, big blue book, and stuff is referenced here. Page 65, paragraph 2. The cause. There is an explanation on how to do this. You won't find this chart in the big book, and that's kind of sort of again how there's different ones that'll show up. People have kind of done their own version of it. But
Mhm.
as you again proceeding now over to the right column here, what part of self was injured
Mhm.
or threatened? And as I interpret you, Mike, again, it's as far
Mhm.
as this is necessarily am I mad or sad or whatever and such. It's sorry. So, well, no, this affected my self-esteem.
Okay.
Okay. And again, if you're in Underearners Anonymous, my financial security.
Yeah.
And so, again, I'm upset at John at work because John is trying to get again. Why am I angry? John stabbing me in the back trying to get my job.
Yeah. So there's the judgment.
Okay.
Mhm.
He's been talking behind my back, gossiping. He's brown nosing with the boss. It affects my self-esteem.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel threatened. Financial insecurity. Yeah, you know what? I need that raise. I need that job and such. Physical security. No, no. John hasn't threatened me. He hasn't said let's go out into the parking lot and duke it out. Um, Personal relationships, though, yeah, because his gossip and such, people that I thought were my friends now, we have a different dynamic in it. Okay. Sex relationships in this situation, no, that he hasn't been talking with anybody that I'm in a romantic relationship. Okay. Then we come here in our ambitions. Yep. It's affecting my ambitions and pride. Yeah. Yeah. My pride thinking it can be associated with in a healthy pride, healthy ego and stuff. Again, it's our self-esteem, our self-worth. So again, yeah, guess what? I'm wondering how much truth there is in what John's been sharing and stuff. Maybe I am a terrible person. So again, don't need to dig that deep in here. So at this moment, we're just checking off the boxes. And
Yeah.
again, this is where it's really helpful to have somebody help. Um, ask some thought-provoking questions on it.
Mhm.
Is again, they're an objective position. You're sharing the scenario with them, and they can kind of say, it's like, well, wait a minute, man. Maybe
Mhm.
this does affect you in this area. You don't think it affects you in pride? Nah, it's not affecting me. I don't care and stuff. It's like, oh, really? Kind of stuff. So that's basically what you're going through. Now, as you can see, there are more pages involved.
Mhm.
I don't think I need to get into a much deep. There
Yeah. Yeah.
again,
That first
how
one was
did my
a good one.
behavior?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, how did my behavior contribute to the situation?
Yeah.
Again, instructions are found on page 67, para two. Okay, again, just checking off the boxes. Okay, fear. Okay, now my pride was kind of the sort of, I don't know. I'm, you know, I'm not afraid of anyone. Yeah, he's got me pissed off, but I'm not afraid of John at work. I might be the one who says, so let's go out in the parking lot and, after work and stuff, all of a sudden tap him on the shoulder. We're going to end it out here right now and stuff. Again, very grandiose. Again, I did not realize how much that was motivated by fear and stuff,
Right.
but it was really helpful that Alan was leading through me. He knew my resistance to that language, so we talked about insecurities. Okay, so again, if you're a man or woman who has an "I'm not afraid of anyone or anything" kind of attitude, perhaps what would be helpful is to substitute if the word insecurity or something else. But again, we reviewed our insecurities thoroughly.
Yeah.
We put them on paper,
Good stuff.
even when we
Mhm.
had no resentment in connection. So this is again, we're doing a self-assessment here,
Mhm.
and seeing how it's affected us, typically subliminally
Yeah.
and such. Again, I didn't realize that. Other harms. Who have I hurt with my ear? What did I do? Um, Again, these are pretty self-explanatory, and I really, honestly, if we were to do a four-step workshop, it could take hours
Oh, sure.
to go
Yeah.
through on this.
Well,
Again,
this conversation might be the introduction to something like that, Randy. So, yeah,
right,
good stuff.
right. Well, and not to dodge the bullet here is sexual harms and such. There,
Mhm.
my gosh, my self of inadvertently because of my insecurities as a man,
Mhm.
thinking that I, again, had been very loving and caring towards my sexual partners and such, was overcompensating for my insecurities. That if I wasn't this way, which probably in a lot of times, I don't want to put words in anyone else's mouth, but I probably was a clinging
Mhm.
partner. Again, I was always trying to make sure that their needs were being met, very codependent, and such. Which was again, after doing this process, this fear that I was not enough just by being myself to be worthy of their love. Okay. To be worthy of this relationship, of this partner. I hope again, if when you can see when it's not yourself, there's just an individual involved with this. Going, oh yeah, I can see what you mean. Yeah, a guy clinging and all this kind of stuff is because he doesn't feel worthy of this love. Um, that's if you can take that stance for yourself personally, almost again like you're observing a play in front of you, a movie in front of you, or a TV, where again, this is what I mean by being objective. It's not like, well, yeah, but she told me she loved flowers, so I gave her flowers every Friday when I came home, when I saw her and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That wasn't being obsessive and over there, this kind of stuff. And it may or may not be, but again, it's things that we can review and contemplate and consider. Would you have considered this? Again, if you were watching this story and you saw the situation reversed and that person, you said, oh, I like octopuses. And every Friday they gave you an octopus, you know? After a while, you're like, dude, turn it down. I just said I liked octopuses once. It doesn't mean that much to me. And, next thing you know, they get upset and they're offended and stuff. What do you mean? I thought you loved. Again, it's when you can observe it from the third person
Yeah.
without the emotional charge, then you get that clarity and that confirmation of like, oh. But
Yeah.
again, as you spoke about earlier about being kind and compassionate toward yourself, that you goes, well, of course that character in this movie and stuff, he'd never ever felt that type of love before, and he was head over heels, and he was so concerned about not blowing it with their soulmate and all this kind of stuff. If you could take that approach towards your life, just the facts,
Yeah. Yeah.
not necessarily getting into the
Story.
why.
Yeah. The story. Yeah.
Um, again, I myself could go down the rabbit trail of the why. It's the
Mhm.
stack of turtles and such, and it's not. It's a natural inclination to know why am I behaving this way, and it can be helpful, but also it can come to the point and stuff where it's no longer beneficial of trying to figure out why everything's happening. Just
Yeah.
observe it. It's happened.
Yeah.
It's part of what my behavior is. And then we get into, again, when we start getting into 6 and 7, understanding what we want to continue with
Mhm.
or not.
Yeah.
So,
Very good.
Mike, I have to mention the battery on my laptop here is starting to go down.
No problem.
Um,
I think we got a good amount of time in. So yeah, no, we're consistently at about 35, 40 minutes for each of these segments. So yeah, so this is a good place to pause for today. And we'll be back in, you and I will be back in 2 weeks, but yeah, looking forward to yeah, I mean, this is I'm feeling kind of really grounded in this kind of meeting in this kind of way, and and really practicing. I feel like there's a lot of content out there where it feels like a lecture, but I feel like we're practicing this, so I feel very grounded, and I'm looking forward to continuing and finishing up this process with you.
Me too. Me too. All right. And those who are listening, thank you for, devoting, time out of your day to listen to this. Um, if this is something that's important to you, again, Michael, myself, we're available to discuss this more, to give you, we're not here to give advice, but perhaps maybe we can help you with any concerns, any confusion you might have in the process.
Wonderful. All right, with that, I'm going to stop our recording.